Hello and welcome. Happy New Year. It's 2026. We're kicking off again. It's a brand new year, but as you can see, the same old people. That might be music to your ears, in which case, if it is, carry on watching because we are going to be talking all about a brilliant FIFPRO bit of research. And we're not Liberty. She's left. I'm sure she'll be back on the other side of this. Well, I've told a little lie. She's not back on the other side of this. Maybe she didn't want to talk about the FIFPRO research. We shall find out. There she is. Well done, Liberty. Don't know what button she pushed, but off she went.
I'm sorry.
Well,
it didn't come up with it like properly like it usually does. And so I clicked something and then I disappeared. And then I was like, oh God, come back.
There we go. What can I say? There's no words at all for this. Emily, lovely to see you and a happy new year to you as well. Sean, as you're up at the top right now, I'll talk to you first. Happy new year to you, sir. How are you?
Happy New Year. Yeah, bring now that to everyone. I'm all right. I don't do any of this New Year resolutions nonsense, right? I don't believe in it. However, I might try and be less angry this year. I think that might be the way forward. Ooh. But considering, I'll just break the fourth wall here, ladies and gentlemen. I haven't read this thing that I'm meant to read. This is all going to be news to me. I'm going to learn alongside all of you. Because I've been in Benidorm for 4 days and I am tired and I am ill. But I love this pod and hence why I'm here. So we're all going to learn together, ladies and gentlemen. But I'm fine. Barry, how are you?
Just throwing the pressure my way now, as if I've gone over it with a fine-tooth comb. But we shall see. I'm not Bryn from Gavison Station there. Liberty, lovely to have you back with us as well. Happy New Year to you. How are you doing?
Good. I'm good. That was Swedish for Happy New Year, by the way, because Sean showed off as well. So I thought I would bring something to the table. I'm good. I'm sat in a different place now. This is my wardrobe doors. They're chalkboard because I was a cool teenager. And so that it means I essentially wanted you to see that New Year, New Me, I redid my bedroom decoration. Because I got some new things for Christmas. And this is now a football wall. And that is a poster from the Euros that I didn't finish filling out, but I'm keeping it up. So quite fun. And this is something I got for Christmas. It is Arsenal artwork from Lucky Cowboys, who make some really, really lovely stuff if you want to check them out. But yes, I'm good. Thank you. How are you, Barry?
I'm very good, thank you. I didn't do too much redecorating, but you will see that just there, that is the official silver award. I have travelled all the way to Manchester to go and collect that from Connor. But there you go. So all good fun. So it's finally there as a recognition of what the channel has achieved last year. So there we go. All good stuff. And I suppose we should really kick off. We've got a three-pronged attack is what we're going for today. We were going for a 4-3-3 formation, and that three-pronged attack is to talk a little bit about the A-League. We're going to mention that towards the end of the show. One of the few leagues that seems to play over the festive period. Obviously, we'll have a little chat about some of the transfers that have already happened in the January transfer window and how that might impact the leagues going forward. But we want to kick off with, and I will just throw this back up. I don't usually do this, but we'll just throw the thumbnail back up for you, the workload gap. And you'll notice there's a few people on that slide. And the whole purpose of the workload gap comes to a bit of a research, a report that was brought out by FIFPRO. And it was very interesting. It came up on my X feed a few weeks ago. It was towards the beginning of December. And it was something that I bookmarked because I just thought, quite an interesting thing. I'll have a little look into that. And I'll be honest, the more I looked into it, the more it seemed to just sort of, I suppose, explain what we already know. It wasn't as if there was anything there that was reinventing the wheel. But it spoke a bit about the top 15 players of the sample size of about 300 that they looked at, were playing around about 50 or 60 matches across club and country at the very top level. But obviously, still within the top level across the world, so we're not just talking about lower leagues and such like, there are a much bigger group of people that are getting an underload. And it seemed very interesting to me, because we talk a lot about too much football. We talk about players in the WSL, they're tired, they've had a lot to do. And Bonmati is a really good example of this. She had 20 days rest from her last game playing for Spain, and then having to return back to Barcelona. So you can understand why you would say that the players right at the very top have got a massive overload. But then there's a lot of teams that are effectively playing a lot less, potentially only 13 or 14 whole games during the course of a season, which isn't much. That wouldn't even be just over one a month if it was an entire 12-month calendar. So it's not ideal. Even if your league lasted for 6 months, that's only a couple of games. So it's not ideal. So we're going to sort of throw these questions out to begin with, Liberty, as you have read it fully top to bottom. I will start with you so that Sean can get a rough flavour as to what's to come today. But what did you make of that? The fact that there is such a big disparity, it shouldn't come as a surprise, I suppose, that there are a group of players that we would call elite, and obviously those are the ones we are pretty much talking about here. Eva Pahor was one of them, Linda Caicedo, dare I say it as a United fan, but Leslie Russo is on there, Caitlin Ford's on there. There's a lot of players that are there, but there's also a really big discrepancy between what they're calling like the average player. And are we at risk, I suppose, of creating a situation within women's football already where the top teams just get bigger, better and richer, and everybody else is kind of getting left behind?
Yeah, I think that so as you said, they had this 15-player top end sort of selection, let's call it that, that come from across different leagues, different leagues across the world. So we had mainly, as we expect, mainly European-based players, mainly Arsenal, Barcelona players, a couple Real Madrid, a Chelsea player, which I don't think anyone would be surprised to find out is Kira Walsh, and then some other players from one player from Tigres in Mexico, and then some a player from Roma, and a badge I do not recognise. Apologies, but I don't know what that badge is. The 8th, but essentially we're seeing mostly European players with this sort of overload issue, or this in this top 15 at least, and based in Europe, but also are European, so players that played in the Euros. Lots of Spain players, a lot of English players. As you said, Eva Pahor was the second highest after Bonmati, so a Polish player, 2 Norwegians and 1 Italian. But the thing that really was surprising to me is 2 South Africans, one being the 8th and one being the joint 13th, making up the 15th. So obviously some players have the exact same amount of minutes played and stuff, so you have on it, there's some equaling. Sorry, I had an itch, sorry about that. But I found it quite surprising how I expected it to be Europe heavy, this sort of selection, purely because it was a season that encompasses the Euros, and the report itself goes into the Euros and AFCON a bit later on, in like individual sections. But that 15 I didn't expect to be so Europe heavy, being 10 of 50, no, let me redo the maths. 13 of 15 players are all Europeans. No Americans, which we think is probably because they, once again, they're probably one of the only countries other than Australia who did not have a major tournament last year. So it'd be interesting to see what these minutes look like with the Asia Cup this year. But then again, they're missing time for clubs, so maybe it evens out a bit more compared to. Oh, I'm so sorry. I've just looked again. There's 1 Colombian in the list. Sorry, completely over. I'm so sorry, Linda. I'm so sorry. It could just completely missed my eye, that one. Just completely missed it. Linda Caicedo is also on the list, which obviously Europe-based, playing for Real Madrid, so not very surprising. But yeah, I think that's quite interesting how Europe heavy it is, and that's not even sort of like, I guess, and this is just like data. This is not like biased in any way. Obviously, helps that they've picked a year to look at this numbers that includes a big European-based competition. So maybe it looks a bit more spread out if it was a World Cup year compared to a Euros year, or an AFCON year, or a Copa America year. Sorry, I was like, there was another competition. But once again, they're not on this list other than Linda Caicedo. They're not represented overall. There were some names on here that surprised me a bit. I don't know if I'm the only person, but I wasn't really expecting to see Ingrid Engen in this top 15. Obviously played a lot for Norway, so maybe that bumped her numbers up. But this type of player where we were thinking she's not playing much for Barcelona last season, and that sort of ended up being the reason why she left. So to see her in joint 11th place with Kira Walsh, quite surprising for me. And also somebody else that I was going to say. I wasn't expecting to see Frida Marnum as high in joint second. Once again, somebody who plays a lot for Norway, so that's going to bump up her minutes, but I just wasn't expecting joint second with Eva Pajor and Claudia Pina. But I guess that's just sort of how it works. But yeah, I don't know if I've actually answered your question at all. I've just sort of given people numbers and things.
A lot of numbers there, but yeah, where we were getting at was the two-tier system. Are we in a situation where we're going to have?
Oh yes,
you're always going to have elite players, of course.
Yeah. Okay, I'll answer that now. Sorry, I missed that bit out. You always are. That is the reality. And there are going to be, especially when you have, I think the difference between men's football and women's football at the moment is that the elite players are very concentrated in specific teams, club football wise. They're either at Chelsea, Arsenal, United, City, if they're in England, or they're at Barcelona or Real Madrid. If they're in Spain, if they're in France, they're at Lyon, and that's sort of it. Like it's not nearly as spread out as men's football, whereas I think we see elite players, more spread out in men's football, purely by sort of development. That's how it's ended up being compared to women's football. So I think that plays a part because those players who are elite, who are then also going to be playing, through to the final of the Champions League, are going to have more minutes, and then they're going to go and play Euros for their country, say. However, that will always happen, but not nearly in the sort of vast quantity that I think we are seeing in women's football because, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the 15 players are Spanish. Actually, 3 are English, including Lesia Russo, Leah Williamson, and Kira Walsh. You're thinking maybe it's going to be more, but that's just how the cookies kind of crumbled. So I think we're seeing that as sort of, and also obviously those are players other than Kira Walsh who, went to a Euros final, a Champions League final. So they're playing those extra games, especially obviously the Spanish ones all play for Barcelona and 2 of the 3 English ones play for Arsenal. So that is also going to add up. But I think in men's football, we see elite players more spread out, as I say, but also when we look at national team call-ups, they're more likely to not be so concentrated on 1 or 2 clubs because naturally they are playing more across, like, say, the top 10 teams in the Premier League probably have at least 5 players that are going to be called up for their national teams, then international break, like across the world. Whereas as I said, it's quite concentrated in women's football. And there will be, Crystal Palace, maybe because this is for last season, would have had some call-ups, but not nearly at the same quantity as Arsenal, whereas it's like quite concentrated that basically every Arsenal player was getting a call-up every single international break. I think that's sort of, yeah, exactly. that's sort of the issue we're having compared to men's football. Whereas, because obviously we're thinking about this, like this structure of women's football and how this data has been pulled from a men's football structure. We're just trying to basically replicate that, and maybe that's the issue. I think that answered the question. Did that answer the question?
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
obviously, as you go further down the leagues, not just sort of in the WSL or just in Liga FA, obviously, even further down, you're having even less internationals, even less games being played, even in the Championship, the WSL2 and stuff. So it's even more worse. That's not good English. It's even worse as you go even outside of sort of the top leagues, which is where I think a lot of the issues of underloading can happen. When we think of underloading, that's sort of where we think of less so than sort of the top flights.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a global sample that they use. So as I said, there's 300 people in the platform that they use, and it's over 30 domestic leagues. So what they were using they've used 141 players from UEFA, 47 players from CONCACAF, 33 from just CAF, 34 from the CONMEBOL, 35 from AFC, which I presume is not Arsenal, that'll be Africa. And then, of course, you've got OFC, which Oceania's got 10. So that's where you are with those. So that it's not every player from every single team, obviously. So otherwise, that would be pretty pointless. It would literally just be Barcelona and Arsenal running riot on that one, with England and Spain also reaching the Euros final. So that's the purpose, is that it's enough of a sample size. But even with that, it's 141 players from Europe. And I know they've got the biggest sort of area in terms of the amount of games that are played and competitions available. Sean, when we talk a bit about underload and overload, this is the first time really that I've seen underload be properly referenced in terms of being an issue. We speak a lot about underload in terms of there not being enough games. So as fans, obviously we're a bit annoyed because we don't get the opportunity to see perhaps the things that we would like to see. But what they talk about with underload here is they found that it's a bolden sentence. This lack of consistent high quality playing time restricts player development, disrupts match preparedness, increases a player's risk of injury, and reduces visibility on bigger stages. None of which will, make people watching this go, "Oh my God, that's just a revelation." But it's good, I suppose, that these sorts of things are being noticed. For you, is there a bit of a worry? I mean, you've spoken a lot about the WSL and your thoughts on how that league's going at the moment and wanting to be in the middle. If you take a look at a team like Brighton, which are at the moment, a mid-table side, as we've spoken about before, do you worry about the potential gap widening with the teams at the top? Or do you feel a little bit more like you could do what Spurs seem to be doing at the moment, which is, grabbing hold of the coattails of the top four and giving them a run for their money?
I don't believe the gap will close until we got parity at some level, whether that is a salary cap or whatever, but that's a totally different matter. It's all a case of stating the bleeding obvious, as far as I'm concerned, in the brief skim through that I've had. Big players, best players play a lot. Players who aren't that good don't play a lot. I mean, and what can you do to fix it? Not much, I'm afraid. Not much, unless you have really, really, really good coaching, or the bigger clubs across the world in Europe say, you know what, we won't be greedy. We're not going to just herd all of our players in. We're going to send them out so they're better. We have a more competitive squad. I have a really bad cough. Anyway, there's not really anything you can do, because you're not going to tell managers, these players being underused and they need games for a big tournament or for friendlies or whatever. You have to play them. Manager will look you in the face and say no, because she wants the best players on the pitch to win the big games. So essentially, is what we all know. But is anything going to change? Not particularly. And we all know there's a gap. You look at all the leagues in across the world, really, apart from the US and Australia, it's all the same teams up there. Never changes. Once in a blue moon, you may get one. Like the season Liverpool finished 4th. You'll get the odd one. It might be Tottenham this season, but it's still a rarity across the entire world that you get some non-established teams break that sort of monopoly at the top. So essentially, it's all a big load of nothing. We all know it's happening. There needs to be a lot less greed, maybe, and a willingness to help these players. But yeah, again, I don't really know what to say because we all know what's happening and there's not really much you can do. Well, there we go. Emily, that's what I call starting 2026 on the right foot. So let's keep this going, all right?
No, absolutely. But what I will say on this one, Sean, is that obviously you're right. It absolutely is stating the obvious. They talk about the fact that there's a couple of Arsenal players in Caldente and Fox who got past 5,000 competitive minutes over the course of the 24-25. 3 more exceeded 4,000 minutes. But you take that down to Freiburg, we're talking about having players that play at the international level as well. So if you're talking about, obviously not every player is going to get to play internationally. There's a reason for that. You can't be expecting people to play internationally just so they can get a little bit better. But in Freiburg, they had 14 of their 21 players play for their national teams. But even with that, their average minutes still stayed below 1,500 minutes because there's such a low number of domestic club matches and there's not very many international club tournaments. Now, obviously, what we've done is, I say we, as if I had anything to do with that whatsoever, what Europe has done is introduced a secondary European competition that nobody can watch unless you physically go to the games. But to me, that's the right way of doing this. It shouldn't necessarily be about trying to make more. We were talking about this off air with Liberty, but we don't want like a Club World Cup. We don't need that sort of stuff. That's going to be more Arsenal, more Chelsea, more Barcelona, more Lyon. We're seeing them enough. But actually, to have the opportunity to do what we've done, I suppose really the next step could be a Conference League, potentially, for the ladies as well, so that there is an opportunity to expand football outwards that way. But also, as the WSL is doing, increasing the number of teams that you have got within your domestic league, because at the moment, patently, it's not enough. Would you agree with that, Sean? Is that roughly the right way to be going about things? You say there's nothing we can do, but there's little things we can do that might make a bit of a difference to sort of spread it out a bit.
Yes, and my idea is less football. Don't do more. What a silly thing to do. I feel like I'm one of the very few that's against the WSL expansion. What's that going to change? Yeah, more teams, more competitive for the mid and low tier. But all you know for the big teams, you're adding more games, and the margins are so small anyway. The big players are going to play even more minutes. Blah blah blah. More level of injuries. Like I'm so pro player safety and all that. More games is just going to increase that. And before you butt in, dare I say, and we're in. Don't wait a minute. We're in a time at the minute where plenty of leagues across Europe in the men's game and the women's game are actually reducing the number of teams in their league. We've seen it in Liga 1 recently. Teams have gone from 20 to 18. In Germany, it's 16. Other leagues are contemplating going to smaller league numbers because it's just increasing more injury the more games you play and everything. And fatigue is a real thing. What else does England have that so many other countries don't have? What's that? Oh, a useless second cup competition. We talk about that one, and then we're going to say, oh no, but those big teams, you don't have to play in it because you've already got problems. Why do we just scrap it for everyone? Let's reduce problems for everyone. There are very easy things you can do here to reduce the number of games. Because let's do this, the international calendar is not going to change, and rightfully so. International football is the pinnacle of any footballer's career. They don't care what you say about champ. No. You want to grow up and play for your country. That is your dream. When you, it's 100%. And if you don't get it, then tough. But look at club football. Reduce the games. Reduce the leagues. It's quite simple in my mind.
Okay, I'm going to challenge that now, hopefully, anyway. And the reason why I think I want to challenge that is because what this report is literally telling us is that top 4, 5, 6 teams, well, the top 4 certainly in England, are playing more football than the rest of the teams within their division. So I don't know how many games Brighton played last year. Do we got a rough idea how many games you played last year?
So
22 in the WSL.
22 in the WSL. It was another 4
or 5 in the Sandwich Cup.
Another 3 FA Cup. 30
about 30. So about 30 games, all right? And we're talking about a team here where players might have played 50 or 60. Now, when you're talking about your Arsenals, your Barcelonas. So I'm with you in terms of trying to reduce what the upper levels effectively are doing. And I think getting them out of the Sandwich Cup is one such step to doing that. But you need to increase for the others. Because if you decrease the league sizes, especially all the way across England, what I think you're then going to end up with is just a group of players that just aren't playing football. One of the biggest things people had to go at Mark Skinner about at United was that he never used the players when he had a massive squad. At the moment, it's like, where's Wally trying to find a Manchester United player because of the fact that he's reduced the squad size so much. Is this not your idea? I think is sound, but actually, do we not need to be at a position where we are getting comparatively, if they can't play internationally and they can't play in international club competitions, that we need them teams to be playing? I'm sorry, I have to include Brighton within this, the additional matches. So I've always said, why not? Instead of having a WNL Cup, why don't you throw that in and make that the League Cup? Very much in the same way that you used to have with the men's game, so that the top teams in the WSL don't need to play in that. But then that's additional games for you guys. That's additional games for the rest of the teams in the WSL, all of the teams in the WSL too. Like, all of those things would result in these players getting better, because what we're finding, Mark Skinner didn't use those players because one mistake in the WSL right now and you could lose the title effectively just by losing a couple of games. There was no way, because of the likes of Chelsea are just too good. So I'll throw that back to you on that respect. Is that not a reasonable comment, that at the moment, part of the reason why the WSL might feel boring to you is because actually there's not enough games. So therefore, you don't have the opportunity to try your team out as much as maybe you might do if you had some pointless cup games that you were able to put them in.
There was a lot of words. Can you just say that again, please? I'm sorry. I'm
still in Benidorm, bless him. So do we need to domestically reduce the amount of games that the top teams are playing, but increase the amount of games that the lower teams are playing, and potentially lower divisions as well, in order to ensure that comparatively all teams are playing roughly the same amount of football? So Arsenal might play 40 games of football because they're also involved in the Champions League, but Brighton might also play 40 games of football or close to, because they're involved in, God forbid, the Sandwich Cup or other additional international competitions like a UEFA Conference League.
Well, it's the tag that comes with a big team. You're meant to be playing in the big tournaments and you're meant to be playing a lot. Like, that's just the tag that comes with a big team. So unlucky if you're Arsenal, Chelsea, Man City, Man United, Barcelona, Real Madrid, Lyon. Unlucky. You have all the money. You have all the good players. You can have a good squad. You can have a nice big squad. And as a result, you have to play more games. Tough luck. Tough luck, quite frankly.
But the point of the underload is that other teams aren't playing. So as a result, they're stagnating. So it's not about the top teams. They can play more. I don't care if they play 60, 70. But actually, it's criminal if you've got international players and they're still only managing 1,500 minutes roughly across the season.
I will, Liberty, in a minute. what I would do then, decrease the squad size. Force yourselves to have smaller squads. Force yourselves to play with what you've got. Because what are we at the minute? It's 25? The squad size? Reduce it to 20. You know, if we're going to have less games, have less squad. Then you're forced to play your players. And don't have a cap on players under 20 or something like that. Then those young players. But, you know, it's just, come on. You're a big team. You play more games. You have more money. You have the ability to increase. And some clubs, and actually, I say some clubs, most of those big clubs, hello Arsenal, hello Chelsea in particular, when you have a big squad and you have good young players on a squad, you don't bloody use them anyway. Like, what are we doing here? Like, this is I feel like this is such an elitist problem, if I'm perfectly honest. This is such an elitist problem that you're trying to, and then, oh no, but we want to look after the little guys. Oh,
no, I can't see how underload is an elitist problem. I can't see how having a group of players who aren't getting the football, if you truly want women's football to have credibility, I think is actually the word I would use. Surely you want the teams lower down to get better. We're trying to close a 50-year gap here. This isn't just a case of
the crux of the matter, right? There's nothing perfect. There will be nothing that fixes this entire problem. And that's the problem we've got, because you're going to leave people unhappy either way. You're going to please people one way or the other. Unfortunately, it's a life problem when we can't all be happy at one stage. This is it. This is the rod we've put on our backs. So you're going to have underloading, you're going to have overloading. Everyone's going to complain one way or the other. And that's that. Liberty.
Thank you. I have some suggestions and also some counter arguments. First off, I don't think that reducing squad size is going to help, because even if you only have a squad of 20, it still doesn't mean that a manager's going to play everyone. That's life. Sometimes they just don't like some people, won't play them for whatever reason. What I would suggest instead is every player in a squad has to have a minimum amount of minutes. Katie Reid, I'm sorry, I'm distracted. Katie Reid's done her ACL, but when she was fit and able, she was playing like every game she could. That's a redundant comment to have. She's literally torn her ACL. She can't play football right now. Anyway, instead of having a smaller squad size overall, each player has to have a minimum amount of minutes, and that was what I would suggest. And that's not a minimum amount of minutes in a year or a season. That is a minimum amount of minutes for your club. So say you have Barry plays for United. Congratulations. But Barry doesn't get many minutes for United, unfortunately. It's wrong in my opinion. Ask Barry, justice for Barry. So to help with Barry's underloading, because he's also an England international, obviously, he has to have a minimum of 2,000 minutes for United alone. That does not include any minutes for England, but for United alone in a season, he needs to have 2,000 minutes. I don't know if that's actually possible, but I'm assuming it is. Across, all competitions, it doesn't matter what those competitions are, but you have to have a minimum amount of minutes to help, because then you can't, that's sort of where I come from in this.
I just did the maths. 2,000 minutes is 22 games, so an entire league season.
Yeah, but I'm saying that across every competition. So United are playing across 4 fronts. It's 2,000 minutes across the league, Champions League, League Cup, and FA Cup. I'm not just meaning like he has to play every minute of the league for United. Like it has to be 2,000 across as many, patch you're in. And also 2,000 minutes was not like a done hard. It was just the number that came to my head. I think underloading is an issue. Because Barry's talking about players who are also international players who will be going to, if you are an international player for Crystal Palace, you are at a good level that you're going and being called up for your national team. You're probably going to be playing for your national team. You're not going to be at Palace for example, I'm using Palace because they talk about them as a team that had players who are playing, significantly less full matches than Arsenal in the report. That's where that's coming from, not me pulling a name out of nowhere. If you're playing for Palace and you're an international, you are probably going to be getting decently good minutes for your country, because that's sort of like, else you wouldn't really be getting a call up. That's not being cruel. That's just sort of how the cookie crumbles. And so underloading is actually an issue when we think about how far these clubs and these teams get in competitions in domestic spheres. So I'm saying they play the group stage of the League Cup, of the Sandwich Cup, and then they get knocked out because they don't go in that first spot to progress to the quarterfinals. So your League Cup domestic campaign is over by the end of November. It's done. That is it. And then you don't play FA Cup football until the end of January. And there is no guarantee that you will stay in that for very long. You may only play one round of the FA Cup and go out first time. So you have no other football other than the league from the end of January, for example, from the end of January through until the end of the league season in May. And usually that doesn't even mean you're playing every weekend, because some reason they put FA Cup games on the weekend. I understand why they do that, but then it means the league action stops. So you may have a weekend where you are not playing any football. Then you then have to, start again the next week. And then also it might be disrupted because the team you're supposed to play, you're supposed to play Chelsea in the league. But Chelsea are now in the League Cup final, so that game is actually being cancelled because they have to go and play that on a Sunday, on a Sunday at the beginning of March. So your game at the beginning of March is now rescheduled to a Wednesday for some reason. So now you've now gone 2 weekends in just the months of February and March without a game on a weekend, when that is what you're sort of preparing for, because of circumstances sort of outside of your control. And that also then doesn't consider, your pitch is frozen because the weather's terrible. So actually, you also still can't play in the middle of February because your pitch is frozen because of climate change and all of that. So then that is how underloading is affecting these top teams. Top teams is in top league teams, not like Arsenal and Chelsea. Players in the WSL who are also internationals, is because they cannot at the moment keep up with teams like Arsenal and Chelsea, who are going to be able to go far in the League Cup. It is not a surprise to any of us that there's only been 3 teams that have won the League Cup since it's in what's the word I'm looking for? Since it was created.
Yeah.
No one, like, even when we look at Liverpool, managed to get out of their group in the current state they are in. They managed it, and it was really good. They get drawn Chelsea. They get absolutely throttled. They got ridiculed that weekend.
Mm.
So mainly their league campaign is finished. It looked like they didn't even turn up on the day. Like, we get to a situation where that's the issue. Obviously it happens all the time across the world in men's football as well. If you are a Wolves, if you play for Wolves men and you get drawn Chelsea, I keep saying Chelsea, it just keeps coming to mind, in the FA Cup, you are probably going to lose and Chelsea are going to go forward, and then you will have less football because you are not going further in that one competition you have, which is why the issue is not stopping football for like getting rid of the League Cup. I agree in some ways that would help, but that's not going to help the overall issue of underloading for some players, because you're still then just getting rid of a competition when that may be their only reason to get minutes, especially if you are playing for a team like Crystal Palace and you do not play. Once again, I'm using Crystal Palace as the example. If you do not play each week, you are not a starter for a team like Crystal Palace. Maybe when they have to rotate when you have group stage of the League Cup, that maybe you're only a chance to get minutes.
Yeah.
Sometimes that happens because if a manager has a really nice 11 that they want to play in the league each weekend to stay up, then and you don't get a say in, then maybe a League Cup group stage is the only chance for you to get minutes and also prove yourself. That's unfortunately also a part of football.
If I can just quickly, just to add to what you're saying, just from the from the report, because it speaks about underload also making sure, or restart the sentence, Barry. Additionally, underloaded players are also more susceptible to injury, and they do suggest how to address the gap. They say that going forward, leagues and federations should prioritise broaden access to meaningful games for a wider pool of players. And this is, when you go to the men's game, you talk about the UEFA Conference League. Everyone's like, well, it's a Mickey Mouse Cup. Nobody's interested in being part of it. But actually, the fact that it would give you more matches to play across more teams in the league would be helpful. They think it can be achieved by expanding domestic leagues to increase match days for all clubs, introducing or revamping domestic cup competitions that guarantee competitive match minutes against top-level opposition, or creating more international competition slots to ensure broader exposure beyond a handful of elite sides, like the UEFA Europa Cup from this year. So as a result, it means that there will be more evenly improving overall player readiness, strengthening national team talent pools in the longer term, because again, it's not just about us. We're talking about globally here. So obviously we're looking at this very WSL centric. But I'm sure if you're in the Maltese League, you'd quite like to see a few more teams doing well rather than just the one. So yeah, please do carry on. But I just wanted to throw that in case that impacted your thinking in your ways to fix things.
Yeah, I think something like a League Cup specifically in England, obviously, as Sean said, it's not really a thing outside of England. Overall, sorry. And it's really not. They have sort of their FA Cup equivalent, and that's sort of it. But in some of those cases, you know, those leagues have more teams to be playing in the league to begin with. Or they have different structure, which means that they play more games towards the end of a season, which could affect that. But then you say that, but then you look at somewhere like France, where they tried to start a new league structure to get more teams to be competitive, and actually just ended up with still being the Lyon show, because they are at such a point where they are so advanced that, you know, the top four basically don't really stand a chance against them still, even when you go into a playoff situation. I think we are in England specifically, we're in a position now where the second tier is growing. We're getting Newcastle are investing, Nottingham Forest are investing. Who else? Charlton are trying with they can't compete with Nottingham Forest and Newcastle kind of money in terms of investment, but they're trying, and they're trying to stay up afloat. And so naturally those teams have international players themselves, so it's not just an issue with I'll go back to saying Crystal Palace, because once again it's in the report. I'm not saying they're in the WSL. It's not just Crystal Palace having internationals that then lose when you go out of a League Cup or the FA Cup, because Newcastle have international players now, Nottingham Forest have international, Charlton, Sophie Whitehouse is, you know, an Irish international who's only just got her Ireland debut. So I think I think that essentially my suggestion is going to be just take any team that is playing in the Champions League at all out of the conversation of League Cup, because then that immediately knocks down their minutes by 3 whole games, because if you play every minute of the quarterfinal, semi-final and final, that's 3 extra games that just it's out of your system. Especially when we're seeing things like Champions Cup coming in and Arsenal playing that this season specifically. Obviously going forward it might not be an English team playing that, but the same exists across like Barcelona do not need 3 more games. They already have more teams in their league than anyone else in Europe, other than other than Sweden, maybe, question mark. I don't know numbers off the top of my head. We just play a lot of football in Sweden. But I think it just needs to. But then this was my. Sorry, I've just remembered I've just had brainwaves that I was going to. When I put my hand up, what I was going to say. The thing is, though, the counter argument from a lot of people, I'm not saying this is what I think, but this is what people have said and will say. If you get rid of Arsenal, Chelsea, City, and United, say, for example, just those 4 teams out of League Cup, the average Joe is not going to care anymore. Like, unless you are a fan of a team playing in those competitions still, obviously, as good proper Englishmen, footballmen, as we all three are, we will still care no matter what. Sorry, I didn't mean to say English. I meant to say footballmen. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry, Sean. I'm sorry. Please don't hate me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to say footballman, but it came out wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. But
Oh,
you know, if you're a very casual WSL fan, and suddenly they go, "Oh, the League Cup finals on at the weekend," and they go, "Who's in it?" and they go, "Crystal Palace and Aston Villa." If you're your average Joe, you may not care anymore. You're, oh, they're not the best players, so I don't really care. Obviously, once again, proper footballmen, we care very much so. Obviously, maybe not Sean because he just doesn't care for the League Cup as a principle, but if he did, he would care because proper footballmen. So that's an issue because then, but essentially, this entire thing of having more games, having everything more is because of money. That's it. Oh, we're going to have a Champions Cup with all the top 4 teams from each federation because we want more money. Or we're going to have a Club World Cup in 2 years. I don't know when it is, a couple of years' time, because we want more money. It's money. It's nothing. They don't care about. I think back quite a lot to what Viv Miedemar said she did a podcast when she did her ACL, something Joe, I think that Politics Joe is like a different subsection, so maybe just look up Joe and Viv Miedemar and it'll come up. But essentially she says, you know, it's just money. They don't care about us. They just want more money. Everything's more because they want more money, because millionaires and billionaires only care about getting richer. They do not care about anything else.
which is kind of it for the entire football teams. That's kind of what we're saying there, is that the big teams will have that. Sean, you did have your hand up a couple of times. Was there
Oh, yes, sorry, Sean.
what you wanted to add?
On the subject of your average Joe won't care. That's on the league. Make your whole league appealing. Create new stars from other teams.
Yes, I agree. But at this current moment, if we just took those 4 teams out, we're not in a position where it's not a position where your average Joe cares about the entire WSL.
I know.
The entire Premier
No,
League.
I know that, and that is for the future. WSL, Nikki Gisette. Let's get better on that. Secondly, on underloading, we mentioned the leagues. We mentioned the confederation. We mentioned the competitions. Yes, more must be done. Blah blah blah. I think we need to point some fingers at players, and it's not across all leagues. I think in certain cases, if you know you're not getting enough minutes, how about you try and look for more minutes elsewhere? Like, I think we're in a culture where people are comfortable. We're nice. We like where we are right now. And you know what? I'm quite settled. I don't really want to move. And if I get less minutes because of that, then so be it. I look at Carrie Jones, for example. I will bring on Carrie Jones. She wasn't getting sporadic minutes here and there, but made the move to Norrköping in Sweden and has come back a totally different player because she is getting so many minutes. So I do think in some aspects, players need to be a bit braver, bite the bullet, go play elsewhere, because you will come back a better all-rounded player who is getting incredibly good minutes.
I'd agree with that. And exactly that is what we're trying to say. Rather than being, and sorry, Chelsea fans, but rather than stockpiling your players so that they can sit on your bench and not play as much, it would be a very good thing if they were to play more. Go on, Liberty.
We're probably going to talk about it later in the transfer bit, but I'm backing off of what Sean said about Carrie. We saw the same thing happen with Julie Blackstad. She wasn't getting minutes. She maybe made the move to City too quick, or maybe, Gareth Taylor should have done more to play her. But she doesn't get minutes. She goes on loan to Häcken. Then her contract runs out at City, so she joins Hammarby. She plays one season. She played all but one game, and the other season she played all games. And now she's got a move at the end of her contract to Spurs that is very well deserved. And she's like Tom Gary from The Guardian called her a very good signing this morning, because she's had the chance to prove herself in a different league. She's come back to England to a team that is going to be the right level for her, and is going to hit the ground running. That was just another example to the Carrie Jones, which is also a very good example.
But this is kind of what we're talking about, and I think we all agree that WSL2 is incredibly exciting and very, very good. But apart from the top 2 or 3 teams, there's not necessarily many teams in the WSL2 that you would fancy holding their own in the WSL. So these gaps need to be addressed. And I agree with Sean, getting the teams to want the players, to be content to go and play at these teams, especially if you're young players. Like if you're Mara Griffiths at Man United, you must be banging your head against the wall, thinking, what have I got to do? They're not firing, they're not scoring as well as they could do. So I want to play football. But equally, she's just signed a pro contract at Manchester United. She's probably got people in her ear saying, your chance might come. You've got to just be ready to take it when it comes. Keep working hard, keep trying hard. I'd imagine that's what's going on, because that's what I would be saying to one of my family members if they were playing there. But equally, her going off and actually playing football regularly is going to do more for her development than being at Manchester United. Go on, Liberty.
Thank you. I think we place a lot of naturally and rightful blame on club football for this minutes, because it is a bigger quantity in a year than international. But I also think sometimes it comes down to international managers also playing their players in completely unnecessary games. For example, if you've already going to finish, say you're in a Nations League group, and you already know you are going to finish top spot in that group, and basically the next game doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You've done it. Well done. Why the hell would you play your best 11 in that game? For on the flip side, for example, Poland did the exact opposite of this. In the Nations League before the Euros, they finished top spot. They were, they hadn't even finished top spot yet. They still had 2 more games to play, but decently they were going to finish top spot unless something horrifically bad happened in the last 3 games. So they had played Bosnia and back to back in the middle. So the first Bosnia game, they played their best 11, played Eva Pajor, played everyone you expect to start for Poland. Then the second game, basically they changed the entire 11. They gave a goalkeeper a debut, who was like a 20-year-old kid. They played a vastly different team in that split game, because they knew that you didn't need to play Eva Pajor for an unnecessary 90 minutes when you knew you had a Euros in the summer that she was going to have to play. And they drew that game 1-1, but they still finished in the top spot because they'd already done all the hard work before. So they were able to do that. So it's like playing players that are already playing so much club football in unnecessary international games also hurts. If you have a friendly before a major tournament, don't bother playing Alessia Russo.
Yeah.
Don't bother. Play.
The argument against that is that the pool isn't big enough for them to really, not necessarily big enough, but it's not got the quality potentially of that first team that you would want to play. So I don't know.
If it's a nothing game anyway, or you've already done all the hard work with your best 11, just I'm not saying a whole new 11 like Poland did. I'm not saying, play something that you've never played before, but like somebody who's already going to have a lot of minutes, like Alessia Russo, like Kira Walsh, that you can see, because they have all this data, ongoing. They don't just get it all in a lump sum. If you know that Kira Walsh is playing every minute for Chelsea, don't bother playing her for England in a game that means nothing. Yeah, exactly. Russo playing against Brazil was so unnecessary. Exactly what I'm talking about. It means nothing. And it wasn't even like a finalissima where like a trophy was on the line, which is it's not a real trophy, it's a finalissima. But it wasn't even that. It was a full-blown friendly. And just was so unnecessary. And Sean's just seen the comment about too much international football.
And I'm not convinced it is necessarily too much international football. Like you say, it's what they do with that. And I completely agree. If you're going to have friendlies, play around with your squad a little bit more. But this is the whole point. They do generally tend to they don't necessarily rotate. And it's quite interesting. You look at Euro 2025. They did a bit in this report looking at what the squad composition is in terms of the number of players for that country that actually play their football in the country that they are representing. I don't know, you might have read it, so I don't know if this is going to be a worthwhile question, but do you know which country has the highest proportion of players who play in the country that they're representing?
It's Italy.
It is Italy. Do you know which one had the least?
Yeah, us.
Absolutely.
100%.
of Wales players.
Can I explain why? Can you explain why? Because you're harking on about, we're 50 years behind your little England, or we're a further 20 years behind England and Scotland and Ireland. So we're slowly getting up there. Liam Wilkinson. Oh, so wrong. Come on. You got to do better than that. So wind me up. Come on now. She wouldn't choose Chelsea anyway.
But Poland had 17% still playing in Poland, but they weren't starting players. They are the squad players, and most of them are young kids who were like going to be third choice, the third choice keeper, for example.
Is Poland a professional league?
I believe so. I think so. Yes, it is. Sorry. Yes, it is. Only recently, though, not it's not been like fully established for a long time, but it is as of the last few years. Yeah,
that's the problem with Wales, is that the league only started in 2009, and only now teams are starting to become semi-pro. Like, we are still in such an infancy stage of where Wales are, so it doesn't surprise me we're at the bottom. But it's all about baby steps.
I know that it won't be. I know we won't have the numbers for it because it's not in Europe, and those numbers were specifically for the Euros teams. But I'd be interested to see what the split is for Australia in terms of international and home playing talent, because I think more. We obviously will talk about the A-League later, but more A-League youngsters are getting a chance in the national team, but it's still going to be quite a high percentage playing internationally because most of their 11 and most of the squad at large are playing either in England or in America, or that's sort of it, in France. But there are some players who are some players both young and also older, sorry, not to discriminate, who are being given a chance in the Australian national team. So I wonder what that split will be, say for the Asia Cup, what that split is going to look like with that squad. I would be curious if it's closer. I think it will be 60, maybe 70% playing abroad, but they are in a point where the point is they're not a fully professional league. They're not fully professional, even though the players that are playing for Australia are on professional contracts. The entire league is not professional, so it'd just be interesting to see that breakdown compared to Wales or England or whoever.
What we can say about that is there is one of the things that they looked at was, just find it, there it is. They looked at how international travel was. And they've only given us the top 10 players, but unsurprisingly, 5 of the top 10 players in terms of travel distance and travel time are from Australia. You've got Colombia, Chile, Argentina, South Africa in there as well. Chile's got a Spain flag, which is great fun. It's not quite the same thing there.
That's what I was talking about. It was,
yeah.
Driving me nuts. Why? And then when they've got when it says, and
it's not like they published it for the world to see, Liberty. Don't worry too much. But where they travel is ridiculous. So like Kyra Cooney Cross, she's done the biggest distance. She's travelled 168,749 kilometres in one season, 218 hours of travelling for 24 cross-border trips. But what then blew my mind even more is that you've got Tegan Micah from Liverpool. She's only had 8 trips, but she still did 114,922 miles, which was only like 60 mile or 50 miles, 50,000, kilometers fewer than Kyra Cooney Cross. But Australia are still very much in that situation as well, I think. But where I did want to move this conversation on to for the last couple of bits is that obviously when we talk about competitions, the Euros are doing incredibly well. As we know, they are incredibly popular. Lots of people watch them and such like. But the prize money is another thing that's changed. 1 second. A little frog in my throat there. That wouldn't go away. In 2017, there was no money for winning the Copa America. Winning the AFCON would get you 975,000 US dollars, and winning the Women's Euros would get you 8 million euros. Fast forward now to 2025, the Copa America's on 2 million US dollars. The AFCON is at 3.5 million US dollars. The Euros had 41 million euros pumped into it. So as a result, what we're also seeing is we talk about the WSL, we talk about football very much from an England-centric point of view when we talk about these things. But globally, the money is being pushed into Europe and into the European brand at the moment, and we're not seeing it so much. I know myself, and part of what they're talking about here is trying to find the data, trying to find the reporting, trying to find the simple things like the career paths of players, the amount of minutes they've played. It's really difficult to get across the world. You can get them in the big places, the ones that we cover regularly. Trying to find the things that happen in Africa or Nigeria, for example. We had a club that followed us from Nigeria that we thought would be really quite interesting to keep an eye on, but very difficult, again, to find some of the information. So I suppose really that the final question, and you can talk about this if you wish to or not, is really about, are we a bit worried still, I suppose, that it's all just going to go to Europe again? You know, what do we do in terms of trying to get it better globally? Because we talk about send players, let them go to different clubs, let them go to different countries. But actually, this is about trying to make sure the quality of football and the quality of the leagues and the quality of opportunity for football is there for women and girls to play globally. You know, we're not just talking about what's happening here in little old England and its little garden Wales. You know, we're not interested in those things. What we're talking about here is the world. And I want to see a fully professional Welsh league that is providing superb talent. I want to be able to cheer Wales on at Euros, and you know, I no shame in saying I was delighted when Jess Fishlock scored. I wanted to see Wales do incredibly well, and I would have been delighted if Wales had finished second to England in the group stages and made it through as well. I'd have been absolutely delighted. I would want to see those sorts of things. So globally, this is what I think we need. Are we concerned at all that this may not happen?
A couple of things. First off, before I go into that, Show Criminal, she won't go back to club football. The only place I can see her going to is Canada. What's the other bit? The travelling, by the way, to these various countries, it's just geography. You can't help where you're born. I'm sorry. Unlucky. If you're Australian, hey, Australia's a great place, but unfortunately, it's all the way down there. Unlucky. You know, I was looking at what we can do today, and I've got a list of all the FIFA where the World Cups have been across the world, right? This is the hosts in order: China, Sweden, USA, China, Germany, Canada, France, Australia, New Zealand, Brazil, and then 2031 is Costa Rica, Jamaica, Mexico, USA, and then 2035 is England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. That's only 3 continents. If we want to see football, if we want to try and give the world better opportunities, go to different places. And I'm really hoping Brazil is a kickstart for football across South America to sort of increase opportunities, to increase finances, to increase sponsorship opportunities and all that. But it goes for the same with putting a World Cup in Africa, perhaps. And that goes again. Do I trust FIFA to do all this? No, of course not. We've got incompetent people in charge. But I think football is... there is such a Eurocentric view on football anyway. And I also think it's up to a lot of European watchers to open their eyes more to the world and not just look inwardly all the time. I think there's an onus on, if you love football and you want to know more, explore. In a way, I know that, whether that be through social media or going to places or wherever, whatever you want to do, I think there needs to be an onus on those people who love football to go and broaden their horizons as well. Bring this information to the masses so we can get more eyes on it. But yeah, it's... Yeah, that's all it is.
I have nothing really to add overall. However, I have something to add, which is more of a commentary rather than like suggestion or anything. I think we think that like sexism, misogyny is like really bad in Europe. It's like really bad because it is bad. It's worse elsewhere. It is decidedly worse elsewhere. Once again, speaking as the only woman here, it is so much worse elsewhere. And I think we as little Europeans, we take someone like Marta very seriously. We think of her as the greatest to ever play our sport. Some people might say that. I would say that. But that doesn't mean she gets the same, levels of respect back home, because of sexism and misogyny is worse in somewhere like Brazil than it may be here. And that's, not something that FIFA or the Brazilian national team or Marta herself can help. That is just, how the country or those regions are at the moment. That is like sort of life. But that does hinder their advancements in women's football as a whole, because they're not taking the women as seriously as they are in Europe, because we are Europe and America and Australia and New Zealand, for example, in a more global outlook, probably in a decent enough position with sexism and misogyny that at least some level everyone sort of takes women's football seriously and women's sports in general. Peep my shirt, by the way, I did get this for Christmas. Whereas in other countries or in other continents, it is a harder, they're already at a disadvantage because society as a whole doesn't take women as seriously as we do here or in America or in Australia or wherever. Oh yeah, sorry, Emily. I just meant on the speaking panel. I'm the only woman. So I think that is something that it's definitely hindering the development of women's football. And we saw in contrast, AFCON had really good attendances. The final specifically had really good attendance. I think it was record breaking, but don't hold me to that. But it is then just a thing of making that consistent. Don't make it a flash in the pan, or making it consistent across a continent. Don't make it a one country thing. That is sort of something we have to fight against. And as ever, we as a sport of women's football and women's sport in general are disadvantaged because we already have the added layer of sexism and misogyny, and that is worse in some places other than just here in England. And if you think that we have it bad because some stupid man behind an anonymous screen said get back in the kitchen, there are people in in parts of the world who have it so much worse, and like borderline would, you know, have such awful things happen to them purely because they play football, and that's seen as wrong for a woman to play football. So I think that sometimes those sort of regions are trying, but there is something else holding them back other than, you know, investment and people wanting to come. It is more of a cultural and, you know, generational issue that they're fighting against, rather than just having people, you know, playing the sport in general.
That's a good point. I think we should start a petition now for measuring sexism and misogyny across the world in Bartons. So, you know, like we would be a 1 Barton in terms of sexism and misogyny, but how many more Bartons might you have elsewhere? So it's
like name and shame, because if you are like 10 Bartons, that's obviously awful, and nobody ever wants to be 10 Bartons at something. So then you're like, oh my god, maybe I should do something, because the idea of being 10 Bartons of sexism is truly terrifying.
I completely agree. So there we go. Just to finish that off, that there are, of course, plans and hopes for expanding all of these competitions that we've spoken about. There's an expanded 16 team women's AFCON, for example. They're thinking of putting the Euros to 24, I think they said, was on there, a 24 team UEFA Women's Euro, how that would help as well in terms of giving international teams the opportunity to play more football as well. So all good things there. And the last thing I would like to mention is that it was meant to be 2 women on the panel now. I feel like I need to go all on the defensive, but Freya needed to drop out at 7 o'clock because she was a grizzly child, which is what happens when you support Aston Villa, I believe. So there we go. That's where we are. I know. She's not even here, and I threw that one in. But there you go. I know. Wow. She deserves it. That's all I'm going to say on that one. I'm still bitter over not beating them earlier on. But whilst we're on this conversation about Freya, what we will do is talk a little bit about her website, the whole 115yards.com. Do go on there, because there is a winter transfer tracker, much like the one they did in the summer, but obviously for now, and well worth having a look at if you can, because it gives you all of the information about transfers in and transfers out. So we're not going to go, knee deep into every single club on this one, due to the fact we're an hour and 12 minutes in already to the show. But I am going to ask you if there are any transfers that have stood out for you. Obviously, looking at the WSL, we've got 2 new managers that are going to be joining us. There's big news. I mean, I suppose really the big question we need to ask Liberty is if there will even be a side called Hammarby at this rate, because the amount of players I've seen leaving that club at the moment, I mean, it's like the Pied Piper of Hamelin taking people out of there. Smilla Holmberg, obviously, going to Arsenal, which is great for you. But there are lots of Scandinavian players, actually, that are moving. Emma Janssen's gone to Leicester City. She's coming from Rosengård. We've had Alice Bergstrom. She's gone from Häcken. And just 10 out of 10 as well to you, Liberty, for wandering around and getting people to spell Häcken with the correct letters. So very good there. Man United obviously signed Hannah Lundqvist from San Diego Wave and Leah Schuller from Bayern Munich. Spurs have just gone absolutely crazy and signed half of Scandinavia, it seems. We knew about Senior Gopset coming, but Hannah Reich come in, Matilda Nilden and Julie Blackstad. I'm sorry if I got any of those wrong. So lots of good players there. We'll go to you first, Liberty, because it is Scandinavia and that is like your second home. Tell me a little bit about it. What is the biggest transfer for you that you've seen so far?
I'm not going to talk about United because I'm just going to direct you over to All for United, because I had chats with Connor about both the United signings last week. So if you want more of that specifically, go over there, get views over there. I'm not going to say it here. But borderline, both very good signings. Like it a lot, but more in-depth thoughts over there. With Connor. Spurs are essentially either making a plan for the future because they're all decently young players, or are slash are upgrading their bench. That's what's happening at Spurs, because it is quite obvious that these are upgrades on players that Spurs have at the moment in certain places. So obviously, Gorbset, we first off knew it was happening because it was announced in December, but that's an upgrade on Martha Thomas. But someone like Yuli Blackstad, once, sorry, just like to say, really good pronunciation, Barry. Sean's been on the end of a run I had about pronunciation today already. Not from Sean, but he just happened to listen to it. But that was very good. I'm very pleased. But yeah, so we already knew Gorpset, so that's an automatic upgrade and also a future thing. But Nilden, if she can hit her numbers that she had at Ike, then it's going to be crazy. She moved to Hecken, and it wasn't necessarily, she didn't create the same numbers that she did when she was in Stockholm, but if she can get back to those levels, then it's going to be a really good signing. Vike, it was a very good signing and an obvious upgrade. But I'm biased. Oh, and also obviously they signed Micah Hamano on loan, who's an indirect Scandinavian signing because she did play for Hammarby. She was on loan at Hammarby for half season, so it's like indirect. But for me, I'm biased, but I think the best signing and the best in-form signing from Spurs is getting Yuli Blackstad on a free. That is brilliant business. And all the sort of Spurs media has said she's going to play at fullback, which I think is quite interesting because obviously she played last season at Hammarby at fullback, except for odd games where she would be either right wing or into midfield. But 24 of her 26 league games she was playing at fullback, which was a new position for her last season. But I at one point tweeted I never want to see her play in another position, but I didn't think that was going to happen because I did think that the differences between the Damallsvenskan and the WSL would mean she'd probably push into a more attacking, position naturally. But both Martin Ho and, as I said, all the media that they've created has called her a fullback, which is really interesting to me. And obviously they are rumoured to have Ashley Neville, who's obviously a long time veteran of Spurs, maybe leaving to go to Leicester. So that's she's going to fill into their what's the word I'm trying to find? Depth there. And also Charlie Grant will go on to the Asia Cup with Australia, so immediate cover there as well when they lose her. Spurs have done very well. I think 4 of their 5 signings I think are going to be quite immediate. The only one that I have slight, it's not an issue, or I'm just more curious, is Matilda Nilden, but I imagine she'll be quite comfortable at Spurs. Obviously her sister Amanda's there, so that's an immediate comfort. New country, but your sister's there, bro. So yeah, Smilla Homburg to Arsenal is just I can't stop smiling. I won't say too much because I wrote something. If I'll shout it out at the end, but I have words that I've written today that if you want to read those, then those are sort of the more bullet pointedly important things. But I've seen
people. Where is it?
It's on my Twitter. But it's for the Guna fanzine. It's just sort of 600 words about what to expect from her, what her strengths are, bit of history, a bit of analysis kind of stuff. But I've seen a lot of people saying, I didn't realise Arsenal were going for a right back. I didn't realise that they needed a right back. Which surprised me, to be honest, because I feel like Arsenal have needed a right back for a long time. And yes, Taylor Hines can play at right back, but if Katie McCabe gets injured, and Emily Fox gets injured, what are you going to do? Split Taylor Hines in half and have her play half at left back and half at right back? That's not going to work. We're already seeing that Emily Fox is on, she was one of those 5,000 minutes players last season, calling back to that. We are got to decrease that, especially because she's going to be going into a World Cup cycle soon with the USA, and she will be starting right back for the USA. So having someone like Smilla Homburg, who is sort of ready for the next step and will also learn under Fox, is brilliant for Arsenal. They had interest in her in the summer, but obviously it is famously hard to sign Scandinavian talent in the summer because of how the seasons work. And Cooney Cross and Rosa Kafaji are sort of the exceptions to the rule, not the rule itself. You tend to get Scandinavian talent in January more than in the summer. It's really good that we persisted and we got her. She's already training. I'm excited. And on to Liverpool, because I think that's the last club I haven't mentioned yet that have Scandinavian talent. Bergström is young as well. She's 21, 22, having a really good season she comes off a really good season with Häcken. It's essentially the best two right backs last year in Sweden were Holmberg and Bergström, and both of them have moved to the WSL, which is really good. I think she's really good. She's gonna, I hope, bring a new level to Liverpool that can help them and mean that they're sort of pushing more. She's as much attacking as she is defensive in the sort of modern fullback style. So I hope that she can add something that can reignite their season. I hope that's what comes, because I don't want to see Liverpool that look meek and will just lay down and take it. Like, I want them to fight back. So I hope that is. And the Folk thing, really, I didn't see that coming. So Amanda Zaza, who is basically, she's a Swedish reporter for Sports Sportsbladet, and she basically doesn't say something unless it's going to come true. So I imagine that Folk will be a Liverpool player by the end of the week, maybe if not next 2 weeks. But she's signed an extension at Häcken, where she is the starting and also sometimes captain, which was a surprise because basically everyone thought she was going to leave on a free. But she's going to go on loan to Liverpool for half a season, so until the summer. I imagine that is a thing with, obviously, Liverpool are investigating one of their goalkeepers for racism. Imagine it may be to do with that and having depth, but also Folk is 32 and she's never left Sweden. Well, she never left Scandinavia, let me clarify. She never left Scandinavia, which I think is quite impressive. But she is a Swedish international. She is the starting goalkeeper for Sweden, with Musovic being out still after she had her baby. So she has brilliant amounts of experience. I think, people will watch her for Sweden and think she's very good. So I think it is going to be helpful for Liverpool. I just didn't see it coming, or why they haven't tried to sign her themselves and it's a loan. That's slightly, but I do think both of those options coming from Häcken for Liverpool are really good. And Janssen is a really good option. Sorry, I just remembered I didn't talk about Leicester. It was a really good option for Leicester. 29, so she's got good experience. I think she's going to help them going forward, and they have a decently small squad with injuries and such. So hopefully that is a good option for our old friend Rick to call on. But the thing is, sorry, my last thought on Scandinavia. The thing is with the Scandinavians is you have to be careful with the minutes. I'm sorry, but I think people always forget that. They have all just played a full season. Some of them also went to a Euros, like Homburg, like Folk. They play the Euros as well. They've played a lot of minutes, and they've basically only had a month's rest, which is not really enough. They should be basically in the starts of pre-season right now, but actually they're going to be playing at the weekend. So don't get and also the same for Hanna Lundqvist, coming from the NWSL, because it runs the same as Scandinavia. So don't expect them to be playing 90 minutes, because at this point they're not going to be able to do that. So just alter expectations for a little bit, and then maybe it'll come true. And I'm done.
There we go. Sean, we'll throw in the same sort of question to you, but also, and I fear that my Nobel Prize for pronunciation may be about to go flying out of the window here. But one of the other big transfers that I saw that wasn't necessarily WSL centric was, here he goes, Lucia Di Giulielmo. Well, I'm getting nods. That's good. Obviously going to Washington Spirit from Roma, which is quite big. And somebody very close to your own heart has extended a contract, as Jess Fishlock will be spending another season at Seattle Reign. So, again, same question to you, but also your thoughts on those two bits of news that I just mentioned there as well.
Yeah, I think let's begin again. Di Guglielmo is a very good signing for Spirit. I think she's a really good left back. I thought she had really good Euros. Interested to see what she does there. I'm quite confident this will be Jess's final ever season. As she said, at the end of last year, she wants one more year and then she might call it quits. So one more year of the greatest to ever do it. Never going to hurt. I think it was quite joyous what Liberty said. Really positive, fascinating insight. I'm a pessimist, as we all know. Now Homburg, I think she will be top 5 in her position when she reaches it at some stage. I do think she is that good and has such high potential. But the problem, it's not a problem, it's a worry. And it's not just Arsenal, it's Chelsea, it's United, it's the big clubs. I'm worried when players that young and who have such a high ceiling go to these clubs maybe a little too early. Because I'm worried about the minute. You've talked, you will wait till I'm finished. No.
Okay, but let me have at least a chance to defend myself after you're finished.
I'll give you 30 seconds. Go on.
I understand the fears and the worries, but surely Emily Fox is, top 3 current right backs. Okay. And I would like a player that you're saying has such a high ceiling to be a top 5 right back in some point in her career to be learning at 19 from a player like that. And I'm not saying, she's going to play every minute. As I've just said, don't alter expectations from players coming from Scandinavia. They've already played a whole season with not much rest. But like the prospect of learning from someone like Emily Fox is going to be so good for somebody so young as Smilla. I'm just saying that is got to be a plus side to going to a club like Arsenal, where you know that the right back already in place is so good that you are just going to get nuggets of information and advance purely through her without even considering the coaching staff, the environment, the league as a whole. Like the prospect of learning from Emily Fox must be so good for somebody who's only 19.
No, for sure. And Slagers famously doesn't rotate that much. And put it this way, I'll look forward
to... Next to defending her again, she's rotated Emily Fox more this season because we've seen, as I said, Taylor Hines playing at right back at points because we've had too many games and it's come quick and fast, and so she has rotated Emily Fox more, and now that she has an out-and-out right back, she might do it even more.
I look forward to Smilla Homburg's loan spell at Brighton in a couple of seasons.
Oh, shut up.
This is honestly like Prime Minister's questions. I feel like I need to get involved. Order.
Who else? I know Leah Shuller's good. I know she is. I don't, there's something about it in the back of my head. I'm like, I don't know. And I don't know why. If it was anyone, and maybe it's just because it's United, and maybe it's just because it's Mark Skinner. I don't know, but I feel like if she went to anywhere other than United, I'd be cracking sign. And it is a great get for United, do not get me wrong. But there's just something in the back of my mind. I'm like, I'm really not sure. But this better be a wake-up call for Elizabeth Turland. Has not scored. She only scored 2 goals since mid-September. 2. And she's one of the ones who Tom Guy reported has had an extension triggered in her contract, along with Toon and 2 others. Gabby George, I think, was one of them. And another is...
Renata.
No, she signed a new contract. There was a 4th one who
Who did you say?
Oh, I'll work this out now.
It's Narsland, Turland.
Nalsland. That's the one. Thank you very much. So Turland, this needs to be a big. This is a big second half of the season for Elizabeth Turland, I think, because if she doesn't start scoring, I think she's set for a lengthy spell on the bench, and she will be gone come the summer. Do you want to butt in, Barry?
No, sorry.
Oh, I thought you were trying to butt it. No, that's fine.
You crack on.
And then the big ones for me, the contracts. There are some that have signed on United have been quite clever. What I do admire United for is how quickly they've started doing business, both in their own house and externally. So I will give United credit for that. But I'm still looking at some of these teams with the players that are out of contract, and I'm like, well, you've got to start doing something. Arsenal's whole squad is out of contract. If you look at it, look, I mean, I'm looking at Emily. I'm looking at Emily Fox. Emily Fox will be extended. I mean, they'd be mad not to extend Emily Fox, but someone like McCabe, Ford, Cooney Cross, Palova, I think, is gone. Kadena, I also think, is gone. Blackstenia's probably gone.
But the thing with, I understand what you're saying. Sorry, I'm going to interrupt. But the thing is, half of the players that are out of contract in the summer for Arsenal, people have already said should have left before. You know, they've been at the club for 7+ years, and people are saying they should have gone before. So just run the contracts down. Nobody's buying a player who is 30 years old with 6 months left on their contract. Nobody's doing that. That's not good business unless you are London City Lionesses. Nobody's doing that. So just run their contracts down and let them go. Like, it's just you're 30, go. I'm sorry, just go. Obviously, there is exceptions. Palova's not reached her levels that she did before her injury, so there's no hard feelings. But you know, there's going to be exceptions. They're trying to exercise an option for Kyra. Daphne is trying to get a new contract. So is Emily Fox, probably trying to get a new contract. So, but like most of these players that you're saying the entire squad's out of contract, most of them are like 30 plus and should leave anyway. Yeah. Unless you're Kim Little, don't go anywhere if you're Kim Little.
No, she's retiring end of season. No,
she's not retiring at the end of the season.
Can I get through a sentence at this rate? My God, we're trying here. You had a lovely little 7-minute soliloquy. We let you run with it. Just give me my moment, you know. I've been waiting patiently. Thank you. Where was I? In my own club, Brighton, you know, I'm looking at Chankovic out of contract, Maisie Simons, Marissa Ollislagers, Kiko Seika, I think is a huge one that might be going. You look at Chelsea, there's so much rumours about Katerina Macario. Angel City have just announced, by the way, in the last hour, they're going to sign 5 players over 5 days. And I'm wondering...
I'm sorry, one of those emojis is giving Kat Macario. If you look at it, it is definitely Kat Macario.
Yeah.
Was that Angel City, did you say?
Angel City, yes.
That's good. They've got a lot of players.
There's 5 there. But you're also looking at Hannah Hampton's out of contract. Aggie Beaver-Jones is another. I think Aggie has a +1. Not sure about Hampton. But then you've also got Millie Bright, Sam Kerr, Gura Wrighton, Lucy Bronze, and Natalie Bjorn, all out of contract as well. There's just, even Liverpool. How are you signing Beta Olsen on a 1-year deal? What are you doing? Same with Capox, a 1-year deal. Like, Liverpool, I know you're signing players, and Emily, I'm very sorry, but come on, got to get your house in order here. And then also West Ham. I know Estelle Cascarino has been linked, but I feel like the lights are on and no one's home. Like, come on, get yourself going here. Got to get some signings in. But yeah, it's still the start of the window, so plenty to happen. Best bit Man City can do this window is to extend Bunny Shaw's contract. If they can do that, get it sorted, because I think there'll be a long, long line of clubs wanting to sign her. But yeah, I'm very interested on the contract situation and see what clubs do what.
Absolutely. Yeah, you just got me having a little look to see what's going on with Angel City there, but I'm not seeing too much. at the moment. Right, okay. So there we are. That's the transfer information as it stands. And of course, it will be carrying on for some time. It actually ends in February. I think it's February the 3rd that will be ending. So plenty of time to see what might happen in that transfer. And let's not forget, that's only the WSL one. There's still lots of windows available across the world, as we've been talking about. It's not just about the WSL. And with that in mind, let's fly away. We could fly all the way to Wales. Should we just fly there first of all? Because there's only 2 leagues that are, and I'm going to please you here, effectively professional and well known, the top league in their country, that play over the festive period. I mean, I say that the Adran Premier wouldn't have played either side close to Christmas Day, would they?
No, close-ish.
How close is close?
Played on the... Oh, let me get my calendar out here. Played on the 21st. And then we played again on yesterday.
Yes, so right, it's only 2 weeks, which isn't quite so bad. The A-League, obviously, that we've spoken about, just kept on going. They didn't really seem to care. We'll play on the 23rd, yeah, no problem. So just give us a little update on the Adran. What's been happening over in Wales?
Well, it's been cold. And therefore, because our pitches are not fantastic, we've had a couple of cancellations. But the big game did happen yesterday. Top of the table clash, Cardiff City against Wrexham, and a 94th minute winner for Cardiff City. 2-1 win. Wasn't as an open a game as some people would have hoped for, but huge for City to get that win. Fiona Barry, 94 minute, great assist from Neve Jenkins. Scout it out on social media. That'll be on Cardiff's media, on Scoriot as well. But the gap down to 2. Wrexham's still top, but Cardiff have a game in hand, and that will be against Britain Ferry in a couple of midweeks' time. Most teams have only 2 games to go before the league split now. And the title race will go down to the wire. In my head, I have a funny feeling we will get a title decider on the last day at the racecourse between Wrexham and Cardiff. I don't know why. It's in the back of my head, and I think I can see it. So really interested to see what's going on. Not good for Pontypridd. 12 games played, 0 wins, 0 draws.
Oh, goodness me. Sorry, I thought I'm muted to do that. And instead I've unmuted to kill you all. Wow.
Wow. I thought, I didn't know he had such strong opinions on Pontypridd. But fair play. The man does. So what I was trying to say, 0 wins, 0 draws, 12 losses for Pontypridd. Really looking bleak. And their 2 best players have gone back to their parent club. Madison Lloyd and Sarah Thomas have gone back to Cardiff City after their loan spells. So, not really tough job player for Ponty. But that's it, Barry. Cough away. Oh, yes, Liberty.
Yeah, let Liberty go.
I just had a joke. Sorry. Barry's opinions of Pontypridd are in line with Sean's opinions of Real. They're not good. If you remember when that's a callback to episodes past where there was a whole thing.
Can I say Real has not changed since my comments on Real. Still very much.
I do like Pontypridd. I've been there as well.
Okay, that's a very random place to like. What was it about Pontypridd? Oh, this is going so off track.
Because Wales is a very beautiful country. There is, wherever you go, you've got to remember, I've been a bit of a town and city man for pretty much most of my life. So when I get the chance to go to these places that, is a 5-minute walk to the sea and such like, it's a nice little place. I'm not a massive fan of the hills.
Barry, can I recommend Benidorm?
Well, you can recommend Benidorm, and judging by the pictures, that would be a place to go. The thing I most liked about hiking around Wales, and this will give you a very good idea of just how childish my brain really is is the fact that you can walk across a part of, I think it's the Brecon Beacons, and as you're walking along that ridgeway, you can literally just take a step to the left and go, I'm in England, I'm in Wales, I'm in England, I'm in Wales. And that is literally the level of my... go on, Liberty.
Oh, I just want to say I've never been to Wales, but my favourite film of all time is mostly set in Wales. So that was my addition to the conversation. Sorry, I've not actually been to Wales itself, but I
What's the
feel like I
film?
have.
What's the film?
It's a film called Pride from 2014. It is based.
Oh, is that the
Yeah.
one about the Talbot Steelworks?
It's about the
Is it
mining
based in
strike.
Port Talbot, though? I think.
No, it's Swansea and Delisle Valley.
Oh, yes, it is.
It's so essentially it's a very, very quickly. It is based on, for the most part, the very real story that happened in the 80s, where a group of queer people from London realised that basically all the police that were used to attack them in London were being sent to the miners striking, and they decided to do something about it. So they tried to raise money for a group, because during the miners' strike, they did not have access to their rightfully deserved money. So they started raising money for the mining community of Swansea and Delisle Valley. They then go there, they create a beautiful friendship, and that is what the film is about. But for the most part, it is in Wales, in Swansea and Delisle Valley. I've never been. I'd really like to go. I think that it probably has, some really good historic things to do with the film, and also the very real thing that happened, but I've never been. But that is my favorite film, and I very much recommend you watch it. It is a beautiful film, and has some brilliant actors in it, like some proper English greats are in it. Bill Nye, Imelda Stelton, some real gems. So I very much think you should watch it.
Completely ruined that for sure. The minute you said there were English actors and some native Welsh ones.
And the woman from Baby Reindeer, who is actually Welsh, she's in it as well, but I don't know her name. But she is Welsh. The main woman
name, but I know the one you mean.
is Welsh, and she is in it, and she plays one of the wives, and she ended up being a politician. Hi, Connor. Well, we're talking about a film you definitely haven't watched. She ends up
say happy birthday to the boss man.
Except for he hasn't replied to my message wishing him a happy birthday, so name and shame. But yes, I do recommend you watch that film.
Go back and watch it from the start. Be careful, there's a jump scare around about 5 minutes ago where I coughed because I unmuted at the wrong time. So do be careful. I wouldn't want you to have some form of heart attack whilst you're listening and falling asleep. So there we go. Right. Last little bit. It's of course the A-League. And I'd just like to shout out, we have introduced for 2026 a Substack, which we'd like you to just go along. It's basically a place for me to collate some of my thoughts and all that sort of thing with regards to women's football, and hopefully try and give, rather than tweeting all the time, because unlike some people, Connor, I don't have the ability to work from home. So I can't get onto Twitter every once in a while and just throw out little snippets of information as such. So I wanted to do a slightly more wholesome roundup of things and hopefully try and put a little bit more of this global football that we've been talking about and of course lower league football out there for people to go and look at if they want to, just with a click. So please do feel free to go and have a look at that. It's all for women's football. We haven't changed anything in that respect. But the reason why I've asked you to pop over to that is because the very first post that we have done breaks down a little bit of the A-League. It gives you, I don't want to call it an idiot's guide because that's not really fair, but I was an idiot. I didn't know too much about it, and it became a quite good guide for me in order to help us learn a little bit more about the league. For example, let's just have a little go. I don't know how good these guys are or if they've even read said article, but could you tell me who the most successful side is in the A-League?
Is it Melbourne Victory?
It's only been in place since 2008.
Melbourne Victory. This is what I'd guess.
I'd guess Sydney FC.
And you would be the winner.
Thank you.
Sure, absolutely, because Sydney FC have been the Premiers 5 times and the Champions 5 times. Now, of course, what does that mean? Well, you can be the Premiers by winning the league, and then, of course, when very much like America, when they do the playoffs, you can become the champions by effectively finishing 6th, but still winning the whole thing. Yes, Central Coast Mariners, I'm looking at you, because that's the type of thing that you have the ability to. I think you might finish 4th, actually, but still. So it's a good league, and it's going on all the way through the festive season. They played on the 20th, the 21st. Melbourne City and Victory had a game on the 23rd. Then there were 4 days later, teams playing again, including Melbourne City on the 27th and 28th. Then again on the 30th and 31st, and now again on the 3rd and 4th of January. So lots of them been playing. And I just kind of wondered if you guys had at any point paid much attention to what's going on at the A-League. And if so, if you've got kind of really any thoughts on it. Some interesting results this weekend. We talk about Sydney FC being the best side historically. Melbourne City, owned by the Manchester City group, I do believe, 1-0 up over Sydney FC in that game, which is quite something. A couple of big draws going on as well. Brisbane and Wellington. Wellington, the only side that aren't actually Australian. They're from New Zealand, so they're involved as well. Adelaide managed to beat the Central Coast Mariners, who were the champions last year, 1-0. Perth beating Newcastle Jets 1-0 as well. And Western Sydney drawing with the side currently at the top of the table, Canberra United. So, Sean, we'll throw it over to you first. A-League, how much do you pay attention to it? It's all on TNT, so it is very much available should you want to. And the highlights, very much like the NWSL, also all available on their website should you wish to go and watch them as well. So, yeah, tell us a little bit about the A-League and what your thinking is.
Well, starting off on a bit of a, in tradition, as far as I'm concerned, starting off on a bit of a down note with the A-League, because there was a finding that came out either right before the season or right at the start of the season about payment and wages in the A-League, and basically it's just not getting enough. And the Players Association have said as much, and things need to change because it's so along the lines of the A-League is now the least desired league to play in for Australians. And we go back now to what we talked about before with the travelling and everything, but the fact that these players want to travel just to get some good experience and some good level of football says a lot about the A-League. But that does not mean there is no talent in the A-League, because I think for those who want players to watch, players to look out for, look no further than Holly McNamara. League top scorer. Oh, she is going to be quite something. Don't be surprised if she makes a move. Either maybe in the summer, if she carries on this form. But, she's going to be one of the best in the world. I'm quite confident about it. She can score for fun. He's coming off the back of a couple of really bad injuries as well. Not easy. But 3 bad injuries. 3 of the A's. Oh, that's awful. That's really unlucky. But the fact that she's come back, hit the ground running again this season, I think if she can have a fully fit season or a fully fit couple of months, don't be surprised to see her make a move to a top European side. Or I'd love to see her maybe in one for you in the Damallsvenskan. I think that'd be a lovely little stepping stone for her to go into before heading into one of the bigger leagues in Europe. But I know we got fake praise and all that. I know. But no, it is a really interesting league. Really to see how it develops as well, because that report was not good at all as far as the league was concerned. But in terms of the talent in it, honestly, it's a really good watch. Really good watch. So I encourage you, especially Holly McNamara.
Absolutely. And it doesn't help as well that obviously it's usually a 12-team league. This season it's an 11-team league due to the fact that Western United were, kicked out. Effectively, it was kicked out. They were withdrawn, but they were kicked out because there were worries about their finances. And that's not just the women's side, the men's side as well, I believe, were taken out altogether. But they've been given a reprieve. They are in a position where they could return. So they've not been kicked out entirely, but they will be missing for this season. which obviously doesn't help because it means that you get one side that is a bit like we had with the WSL2 last year. You've got a side that doesn't play each week, which doesn't necessarily help with the continuity and the underload, as we've been talking about as well. But Liberty, talk to us a little bit about the A-League. What's your experiences with it? At the moment, we've got Canberra United, as I say, top of the league. They're 2 points clear of Melbourne City, but Melbourne City have got 3 games in hand within which they can play. So you would imagine they would be likely to take the top spot. So yeah, tell us a bit about the A-League.
So Melbourne City have games in hand because they had to go and play the Asian version of the Champions League, and they had to rearrange games because they had to play them like decently, like in the space of like a week. They ended up winning them all like really comfortably. I don't really understand why, but essentially then they've had games rearranged. They also had to cancel some games because the last international break of 2025, the A-League went, don't need a 2-week break for this international break where some of our teams are going to be missing a lot of players. We'll just continue. And then some teams went, hang on a second, we can't continue. We've got no players. And sorry, that was my phone falling off my leg. And Melbourne City then had games rearranged because of that. So just continual incompetence, I'm going to say, with the league at the moment, with decisions like that shouldn't be happening. So they've played some of those games now, but there's others have then been postponed, and it's a mess. But for some enjoyment, the game that I want to talk about specifically is Central Coast Mariners 3, Melbourne Victory 3. Now you're thinking it's a 3-3 draw, 6 goals, fun, brill. Central Coast Mariners were 3-0 up in the 90th minute, and then in a 7-minute span they lost it. Now this was before the new year, just before the new year. So it's a bit of a week ago now, but with the rearranged matches, Melbourne Victory haven't played a game since because other teams are playing the rearranged games and they didn't have one, blah, blah, blah. So it's still relevant in my eyes. So yeah, it's the last game they played, so it's relevant. How the hell do you lose a 3-0 league in the 90th minute? It's insane. At the time, I was working early morning shifts, as in I started at 8 a.m. and I checked the score of the game because I keep an eye on Melbourne Victory. It's where Kyra Cooney-Cross came from. It's where she very famously scored the 120th minute Olympico, if you know what that is. So I keep an eye on them. I like to know if they're doing well. And so I checked it, and it said 3-0, and I was like, oh, terrible result. That's really bad. And then sort of got ready to start my shift. I looked again, 3-3, and I thought, what the hell has gone on here? But that's the sort of chaos you get in the A-League. That is sort of, kind of the chaos and the drama that happens. So it's a very good league if you're a chaos merchant and you like the sort of drama of football. It happens. But yeah, Canberra are on top. As Barry said, City have a lot of games in hand. They are part of the City group. I think Barry said that earlier. He wasn't sure. They are part of the City group. A conversation for another day. We won't get into multi-club ownership right now. Boo, in my opinion. But we'll talk about it for a day. And then it's the Victory in third. But I think the A-League is interesting league because it is, we think about these fully professional leagues, it is not a fully professional league. And consistently we have reports coming out of Australia that say most of our players are having a second job on the side to keep afloat. They're not playing fully professional. Obviously somebody like Holly McNamara is on a fully professional contract, or these sort of top players are, but the rest of their squad aren't. That is what's happening. So it makes for quite interesting watching, because you watch the football and you're thinking, and she's like some of them will be like a paramedic, and you're watching the football and you're thinking, and she's done a 12-hour shift at some point this week and trained for football. And it like actually genuinely makes you respect them even more. Obviously, you respect professional athletes anyway, but when you're thinking she's done a 12-hour shift in the ambulance, you're also thinking, oh my God, and she's playing football. You just think, wow, brilliant. The time of kickoffs sucks. If you're in a UK audience, it is terrible unless you fancy getting up at 6 a.m. Obviously, if you're an early bird, stick TNT on at the weekend. But if you're not, it kind of sucks. But if you do find yourself up early on a Saturday for whatever reason, do stick it on. For example, one time last year I was traveling to the airport and I had to get a really early bus. And I'm talking 2 a.m. And I get the bus to the airport. It's about an hour long from my town to Stansted. It's just direct, so you just get on. And I stuck a game on my phone just to pass the time on this hour. Wow. One, it's kept me awake. Two, it was really entertaining. And it's just good football. Like, it's just good. And also, if you care about women's football across the world, like, it's definitely a league that if you're awake at the time, just stick it on. Some games can even be at like 8 a.m. UK time, so that's slightly more reasonable than 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. But yeah, just keep an eye out. Just keep an eye out. Have some fun because it is a really interesting and enjoyable league. Even just to watch a couple of games here and there. You don't even have to be, the most regular watcher in the world because of the time of kickoff. 6 a.m. is so rough.
Absolutely. Obviously, we will try and keep you up to date with all of those things on the Substack and throughout our shows on a Monday night. But just as an example, going over what Liberty was saying there, on Friday, you've got 2 games being played, but they're at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, which are quite reasonable times, apart from the fact that it's a Friday. So most people at 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock, such as myself, will not be having the ability to just whack on TNT. I'm not convinced I'd be able to get through. Come on now, we're just going to do a bit of English, and whilst you're doing that, just going to whack on TNT there to see Sydney against Adelaide. On the Saturday when they play, though, 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock, which is, again, a bit of a tricky one. The 6 o'clock one, like you say, you might be able to get to. I think this is where the A-League struggles, really, because at least with the NWSL, there's going to be a lot more players that you know. So if you're getting up early or staying up late, maybe you're a bit more likely to watch it. But if you want to get a more global audience, it's difficult, isn't it, in terms of getting your times because they're so far away. So it's nothing they can do about it. And obviously, it's got to be right for them in the country in which they're playing in. But you do need to have, as Liberty says, there are people that really want to, and as Sean said earlier on, a European audience that actually look a bit more outside of their own bubble in order to be able to watch and get involved with those. And the last thing I would add to that as well is go to their website. It's aleagues.com.au/A-League-Women, or you could, as most people would do nowadays, just type in A-League Women to Google, and hey presto, you'll have all the information that you could possibly need just there. Liberty, your hand is up again. I assume you are not taking the Pledge of Allegiance.
No, I'm not. I just thought something I was going to say earlier, and didn't say, and it's going to be quick. Sean saying about more people watching football outside of Europe, absolutely 100%. Yes, please, 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 please. But also, can we make football outside of Europe more accessible to watch in the first place? Because I would love to watch, as I said, Liga MX is back this week. Would love to watch it. Think they've got some brilliant talents and brilliant teams. Anyone knows how I can watch it in England? Feel free to tell me because I do not know. Or Japanese football. Would love to watch the Japanese league. No clue how to watch it. Not everyone's got access, and I think that is also something that holds back leagues outside of Europe, and also the USA, and also Australia and Canada. I don't know how to watch these leagues. I'd love to watch Japanese football or Liga MX. I don't know how. I can't do it. I don't know how. So, like, one, if you know, please let me know. But also, I think that's also holding back a more global women's football audience rather than being Eurocentric. Sorry, that was quick. I just that you just sparked the thought, and I need to say it.
Must try to not do that. To be fair, we were talking earlier on, Sean, so I'm looking forward to a 2-hour show. I said there's no way this should go 2 hours today. Liberty took that as a personal challenge today to make sure that we got there. We're on 1 hour and 59, and so I fear she is going to be correct. But the last thing I would have added to that, of course, the highlights are always on that A-League website, so do go and have a look, because even if you can't watch the matches live, which I struggle with, I don't have currently a TNT subscription, although I'm sure I will do with the FA Cup coming up as well. But very, very important that you have a little, not important, it's not the end of the world, nobody will die if you don't watch it, but it'd be really good to. It's important if you want to broaden your horizons to do so. Sean, it's been an absolute pleasure having you with us this evening. Your New Year's resolution, I think, was very good. Even though it's not a resolution, I think we had a much more positive Sean there. We've had minimal head shakes, which has been lovely. Anything you'd like to shout out? Anything interesting happening in the world of Sean that the viewers should know?
No, not really. I'm just going to say thank you and goodbye. I can't wait to go to bed.
There we go then. So go and follow him on his Twitter /X down there. Liberty, remember, you can go and read her article in the Gooner fanzine. I don't know where you'd go to get such a thing, Liberty. I presume it's somewhere in like a Woolworths or something like that. It's
an online thing. Oh, were you joking?
I've got no idea. I'm not going to be signing up to the Gooner fanzine anytime soon.
Oh,
so
no. You can just, Barry, the link is on my Twitter. It's just an article. You don't need to sign up for anything, subscribe to anything. It's free access. It's a fan-run fanzine, obviously, keys in the name. Yeah, the women's side is run by mine and Sean's friend, Freddie. Sorry, Sean, who's a lovely lad. He's younger than me, so I can call him a lad. But yeah, I just wrote some 600 odd words about her. But honestly, I've tweeted up a storm today and in the last couple of days with all the Scandinavian signings. So just go onto my Twitter. There's some tweets about Julie Blackstad. There's some tweets obviously about Smilla Homburg, about how there's going to be no players left in Sweden soon because everyone's getting one. I made a joke earlier that everyone asked for a Scandinavian player for Christmas and is getting it a little bit delayed. I don't think we will finish. I don't think it's going to be finished. I think more players, obviously Falk maybe is going. We're going to have more players leaving before the end of the window. But yeah, I'm just got Twitter fingers at the moment because everyone's doing everything at the same time. But yeah, just Twitter for now. I've got not much else to say. Nice to be back. I also on Twitter had a little bit of a rant earlier about pronunciations. Barry, your pronunciations were really great today, so were Sean's. Your pronunciation of Ningxerping, brill. Well, I appreciate that very much. But maybe just read that because I'm kind of fed up of English people specifically, deciding that they're too big and too clever to even try to get pronunciations right because it's not Hacken, it's Hecken. And how many times do we have to tell you it is Hecken? So yeah, and also I've been terrorizing everyone in the WSL to spell Hecken right since they started signing them. And I would like to say bullying does work because the first Spurs post, they spelt it wrong. I said, are they related to Hecken spelled properly? And then the next post, they spelt it right. I think it was my fault because it got a little bit of traction. But just spell things right, pronounce things right. Use Google, please. Please, especially if you're saying you want to work in women's football and be a presenter, just try. It's really not that hard. But yeah, that's it.
Not me calling the Asian side the Wuhan Clang on whilst we were having a conversation there because I wasn't sure how to say the second bit. Not me, never. So there we go. Right, it's been a pleasure. Really, really has. That is the first show of 2026 in the bank. We will be back on Wednesday where we kick off our Lower League Lingo shows. Me and the guys will be back for that one where we are going to be talking about the WNL. all of the information that's been going on there and looking ahead to the WNL Cup and Plate that is happening this weekend. Other than that, we will be back next Monday. Freya assures us she will be here next Monday, so we should all look forward to the return of Freya next week. Liberty might be allowed back if she escapes Sean's tongue lashing that I can see that may well be coming here, the amount of times he's shaking his head at her today. So we shall find out what happens when the whistle blows here. But other than that, it's been an absolute pleasure. Have a very, very good Kip, if we haven't already sent you to sleep. And we shall see you all next week. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.